So if you have comments, I'd love to talk to you after this talk as well. I'll be at the Microsoft booth from 6 to 8, and I'll be at the event tonight. Love to hear your feedback on what it's like to develop smartphone and Pocket PC applications, ways we can improve your experience, features you'd like to see added to the operating system. Anything's fair game. What I want to talk about today, though, is a couple things that we're going to be exposing in the operating system, in the next version of the operating system. But mainly, I want to get across a few key messages. One, I want to get across the fact that we are really committed to enhancing the platform, and we're doing that in a number of ways, which I'll talk about. We're also making a concerted effort to unify the platform. And by that I mean Pocket PC and smartphone. In a number of ways, those platforms have diverged, and it's our intent to make those platforms more and more consistent so that you have a much better chance of writing a single application that can run on both Pocket PC and smartphone. We're also investing heavily in exposing managed interfaces to existing features in smartphone and Pocket PC, as well as managed and native interfaces for new features in smartphone and Pocket PC. We'll talk about all those things today. So today, this is the operating system today. We have a pretty rich set of tools. We have a lot of APIs that you can write applications to. One of the things that I wanted to get across to you in terms of our roadmap is that we're going to continue driving very aggressively to support and enable a wider variety of form factors for you to write really cool applications for. We're tied much more closely to releases of the Windows CE operating system than we were in the past, and this enables us to provide all the rich new features that Windows CE is enabling on our Windows platforms much faster, on our Windows mobile platforms much faster. I think you saw, some of you, hopefully many of you made it to the keynote address both today and yesterday. A lot of new, really cool features coming in Visual Studio to let you write applications much, much more easily on Pocket PC and smartphone. So mostly today I'm going to be focusing on managed and native interfaces that we're exposing in the next version of the operating system. So a caveat, these are our best intentions and our current goals. Some of the things I'm going to be describing to you are already implemented. Some of them are just plans of record. Things can change. Your feedback might alter things. So some of the interfaces may look a little different by the time you actually have this operating system in your hands. But this should give you at least an idea of what we're going to be providing for you. First thing that we're going to do in terms of providing a really, really strong platform for you to write applications for is ship a lot more of the runtimes in ROM. Then you can guarantee that they'll be there in the next version of the operating system. So on Pocket PC, that means we'll have the newest, latest versions, new releases of both ATL and MFC, and the current versions for backwards compatibility. On smartphone, we don't really have the backwards compatibility problem because they aren't in ROM now, but we'll have the current versions in ROM. We can guarantee that. And we'll also have ATL 4.0 continue to be available through installation, but not shipped in ROM. The other really, really cool thing that we're exposing in the next version of the operating system is a whole new version of the .NET Compact Framework. We've had a lot of talks about this. There's a lot more planned. I would really encourage you to go to as many of these as you can. There's a lot of capabilities that you're going to have just through the new version of the Compact Framework. Some of the additions are new C language features like generics and anonymous methods and iterators. Lots of new Windows forms controls like web browser and date time picker. Support for the new device features like screen rotation and then different resolutions. Extensibility is a really big topic, and that's an area where the first version of the Compact Framework was a little bit weak. How many people are doing anything interoperability related, like you have maybe a mixture of COM or native and managed code? Anybody? A number of you. So that, as you know, that story is a little bit weak in the current version. Starting with the next version of the operating system, we're providing support both directions, so managed to native and native to managed. A lot more improvements in p-invoke marshalling. So right now on the current platforms, there's a number of cases where you might want to p-invoke a Win32 API and it just doesn't quite work for a number of reasons. Maybe there's arrays inside structures that are part of the parameter for that. Starting with the next version of the operating system, you should be able to be able to do pinvoke on a much, much wider range of interfaces that you might want to call. More stuff in the next version of the Compact Framework are a lot better XML support. I think somebody just this morning asked me about XML serialization. I think that's probably an important feature for a lot of you. A lot of more rich data, XML and data support. Lots of new libraries. Somebody this morning asked me about registry and cryptography, and those are both libraries that we'll be supporting, so you can access through managed interfaces. A lot of new access to networking, better threading support. This is all stuff that you'll get in the next version of the .NET Compact Framework. And again, I encourage you to go to some of the special talks that are focusing on this. One of the other features that is actually Windows Mobile specific that I'm very, very excited about is Notifications Broker. Probably a lot of you are writing applications right now. I know I've been in your seat and I've written them too, that use a number of different APIs to access various states in the registry, or you actually, or different APIs are going directly to the registry, and there's a number of problems with that. One, those locations in the registry could change from versions of the operating system, one version to the next. There's not really a good way to pay attention to when those states change in the registry, other than polling, which we definitely encourage you not to do for battery reasons. What the Notifications Broker does is under one model and one interface let you access a very, very wide range of system state information and also get notification on it. And I'd like to embarrass Robert. Please stand up, Robert. Robert is our very own stat man, and I want you to know his face because he's here the whole week, and both Robert and I would very much like to hear your input on different state information on Windows mobile platforms that would be interesting for you to have access to very easily in your applications. So things that you're having to grok around in the registry for right now, we want to expose as many of those useful things as possible through this Notifications Broker interface so that you don't have to poll for changes in the registry and you have one nice clean interface. So again, you can register for notifications on the change. You can expose custom information through the Notifications Broker that other applications or your own application can get notification of changes on later. Some examples are battery, phone signal strength. Could be really interesting to know that kind of stuff in your application. A little bit of code here to show how you might use this interface in the next version of the operating system to be aware of changes to essentially new unread voicemail messages. Managed POOM is another great example of a managed interface for an existing feature set that we're providing in the next version of the operating system. Anybody writing native POOM right now? Applications that interface POOM? It's a very rich interface, probably not the easiest interface in the world to write to. The managed interface is a lot cleaner and simpler and much, much easier to use. If you're really taking advantage of that in your native application, it will continue to be there, but we're providing an alternative that's a little easier to get going with in the managed side. And both Notifications Broker and Managed POOM, if you want to really see some detailed code examples of how you might use this in your application, I encourage you to go to a talk tomorrow morning at 11:45? 10:30? 11? 10:30. And we'll be Larry is going to be going into a lot of different code examples around some of these interfaces. But Managed POOM, again, some of you are using this in the native API. It allows you to build applications around contacts, tasks, and calendars. Tons of different ways you could use that information in your application. So things you can do with it is get collections of any of those things, contacts, appointments, or tasks. You can operate on individual items in those collections, like create a contact, edit an appointment. One thing I should mention is we've also made some significant performance improvements in POOM, and you'll benefit from those in both the native and the managed interfaces. A little example of some code that you might use to add a contact using Managed POOM. Not very many lines of code, so we create a new contact, give it a first name, a last name, and an email address, and add it, and that's it. Manage MAPI. Again, MAPI's been around for a while, but what we're exposing in the next version of the operating system is a managed interface that's much more streamlined and easy to use. Larry's also going to be showing some more detailed source code examples for this tomorrow. With Manage MAPI, again, it's really easy to envision how you can do cool things in your applications with access, very simple, easy access to sending email, sending SMS messages, and capturing or intercepting SMS messages. Just sending and intercepting SMS messages alone kind of cries out for a lot of different interesting applications like turn-based games or chat kinds of programs. So here's a little code sample of how easy it is to send a new email message. So I set up a single recipient in this case, give it a subject and a text and a subject and body, and send it. And here's a little code example of intercepting an SMS message. So we set up a filter, and that's basically about it. Managed telephony. This is a little bit of a different example. The telephony APIs, anybody use like Tappy or anything? It's a pretty rich, wide interface. What we're trying to do with managed telephony is not to map the whole Tappy or XTappy interface. That was not our goal at all. What we're trying to look for is just what are some of those really crucial things that are interesting about telephony, and expose those through a managed interface so you can get to them really easily. So things like make a voice call. That's something that you can do in just a line or two of code now in managed code on the next version of the operating system. Also, something that's probably really useful is being able to access the call log. So maybe I want to find out, get a list of the missed calls, and maybe provide those in some interface on the home screen or something, or look at outgoing calls or incoming calls. It's really easy to do that with a managed telephony interface. There's also lots of interesting status around telephony. Some of this is exposed through this API and some of it through Notifications Broker, but it's all potentially really interesting for your applications. So you might want to know from your application whether you're roaming or not, or you might want to know whether the radio's off, or whether you currently have a voice call going on. And that's all stuff that you can get through a combination of this and Notifications Broker. So here's how easy it is to make a voice call using managed telephony in the next version. And now, with a little help from the audience, I'll show you a little bit of that. Okay, what I've got here is a little application written with just a few lines of code that can do two things using managed interface. First, I can very easily create a contact in just a few lines of code, and I'll show you how that's done. And this application also is written to intercept an SMS message and add that to a contact, which may not work because we may not have a good connection on that phone. But let me show the first part. We'll give it my name there. Oops. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to hop over to contacts. And there it is, Paula T. And now I'm going to bring that application up again. Me, Robert. I've got like one bar in here, so we'll see if we get Robert sending me an SMS message, and I'll show you how this little program can intercept that SMS message and automatically create a contact based on that. Okay. We can switch back to this in a second. I actually have another demo I'm going to show to you. The source code for this sample, I'm going to scroll through at the end, and it'll also be available as a sample, so you can see how very easy it is to do that. All right, more cool features in the next version of the operating system, Direct3D and DirectDraw. Anybody, some of you are doing games, right? Are they really graphical games? Anybody? All right, so this is pretty exciting, especially, you know, with some of our devices now support really high-res, fairly high-res screens. So we're really excited about having this available for you application developers. And for a couple of reasons. One, it's really a powerful high-performance graphic system. And two, we're leveraging the experience that many of you have on the desktop, writing applications for this API into the mobile platform. So you'll see a lot of that. What we're trying to do is leverage that rich developer experience and knowledge base that we've built on the desktop so that you can use that and leverage that on the mobile platforms. It is going to support both full screen and windowed mode, and they've aggressively pushed the footprint, which is going to allow us to ship this in ROM. We also have DirectDraw, which is the 2D based. It's, you know, optimized for a different environment, but still very, very useful. Some examples are like content generation. Again, aggressively pushing the footprint on these interfaces so that we can provide them for you in ROM. So a little bit how the architecture works. Mostly wanted to do, though, is encourage you, if you're interested in Direct3D, to send email to this email address so that you can get hooked up with us and be aware of all of our plans in this area. Location API is actually one of my favorite new features of the next version of the operating system, because these phone-based devices in particular, although all PDAs, mobile platforms, just cry out for a lot of really interesting location-based applications. Anybody doing location-based applications yet? Or plan to, maybe? Yeah, a few. Yeah, there's just so many neat things you can build on this, like find resources near me, locate my buddies, lots of really interesting things. So the architecture for the location-based API in the next version, we have our client applications, which many of you will be writing. We have providers that are responsible for surfacing physical kind of raw location information like latitude and longitude, and it's plug-in architecture. So we'll have a couple available in the base operating system, but other people, third parties, will write more. Lots of different kinds of providers we can provide. There's resolvers, which convert physical data into something more meaningful. For example, a resolver might convert a Latin long into a street address that you could consume in your application. And then the last part of the architecture is what we call fusers. And fusers provide a way of consolidating multiple sources of location information. So maybe on a phone device, we have both GPRS and a GPS, or a couple different means of locating information, or location information. In that case, the fuser's job is to surface one single one. How it does that is, how the weighted averaging works is it looks at a variety of factors. One is it looks at the basic reliability of both the provider and the resolver, and it looks at the age of the location data. So if one source is providing location data that's very much older than another source, it's going to favor the source of data that's a little newer. And then it also looks at the precision. So some providers inherently provide more precise location than others. So the fuser considers all those things before returning a single location. What we will provide is both a native and a managed interface, but in this case, all the core location API is managed. So what we're providing is a native wrapper. In some of the other cases, it was opposite. So the native API will probably be fairly thin. It may be as simple as just returning a Latin long, but for the managed interface, we'll have a lot richer interface. You can get access to things like the precision of the data. You'll be able to find out what providers are available. And there's also some really interesting integration with the map point location server that you can use to build into your applications. The map point location server is a product that we'll make available to mobile operators that they can host on their site, not on ours. And through fairly simple SOAP-based calls, we can surface location information that the wireless operator through the cellular network already knows. So just by virtue of the fact that my device is a phone, it knows where I am, and we can surface that as location information. And then we can also integrate it with things that MapPoint itself provides, like being able to map my location or provide information on services that are near me. So this is the way this works. Again, my application, if I want to make it location aware using the mobile location services or the MapPoint location services, I can make a simple SOAP call to the location service. It surfaces that location information through the mobile operator, through the cellular system, and then I can make another call on map, get a map. So that's going through that again. But what I'm going to do instead of that is show you another demo of how interesting that can be. So what I've got this time is a smartphone. Everybody see that? And I've got a little application on here that's written to take advantage of the services that I'm showing you there, the MapPoint location service. So what I'm going to do is locate contacts, and I happen to have a buddy named Steve who has given me permission to locate him. Oops. Yeah. There we go. So now I've got kind of a marginal radio connection to this device. So it's this little application is very simple in just a few lines of code, but it actually has a fair amount of retrying built in. So it might take up to a minute, but I'll switch back to this and show you what it looks like when it finds my buddy. Cameras are also, as you know, devices that you're finding more and more common on both pocket PCs and smartphones. And what we're going to do in the next version is give you a couple different choices for how you might access the camera from your applications. First option is through the DShow APIs, which we're going to make available. It's similar to what you might have seen on the desktop, but we'll provide access to things like the viewfinder window and capturing video streams. And what we're also providing is access to what we call the picture picker control. This is a built-in common dialog that lets you do two things. One, allow a user to select an image that you can then consume in your application, or also directly go to the camera and have a user take a picture and then consume that picture in your application. The control inherits from the get open file name, so there's a native interface as well as a managed interface. Show you a little code example. So in this case, I'm going to I want some user interface that will let a user pick a picture that I then want to consume in my application. So in this case, I'm filtering for just BMP files, and I'd like to start in the program files, my app directory, to look for these BMP files, and I want the title of the user interface to tell my user to select a bitmap. And then if they say okay, this will return, and then I have the bitmap image name right there in the file name property. And there's a property on that API, again, that you can go directly to the point where a user is asked to take a picture. Device management. Anybody played around with the configuration manager on previous versions of the operating system, or even the current version? We're not doing a good enough job publicizing that. It's really actually quite a powerful way to configure devices. There's a number of configuration service providers. These are plugins that we provide in the ROM on both smartphone and Pocket PC now that allow you to configure a number of different things. You can configure browser settings, the home screen, the state of various devices. Just a really, really rich way to configure devices both locally and remotely, like from your application or through like a WAP push. What we're doing to make it a little easier to consume this from your applications in the next version, we still have the native API that we've always had, DM process config XML, but we're adding a managed wrapper so you can get to this a little easier through your managed code. We're also providing in addition to the process configuration method, a test configuration method. So what that lets you do is, let's say you created some XML to provision your device, but you want to test that and make sure it's formatted correctly. You can send that with the test configuration method, and that will essentially test the validity of that configuration without actually applying it. We also will have an OBDM compatible client on phone devices in the next version of the operating system. It doesn't replace Configuration Manager. It's for kind of a different requirement from some of our other customers. Here's an example of how you would use a Configuration Manager through managed code to make a change on the system. So in this case, I want to add a browser favorite, and I want that to be www.microsoftmdc.com. So this is an example of how the XML looks. All the Configuration Manager provisioning works based on XML documents. This is an example of what that formatting looks like. There's quite a few samples available that you can look at online. So once I wrap up the XML, create an XML document like always, and now I have a managed interface that I can provision my device with. After making this call, I could go out to IE and I would see that new browser favorite. Native database support. How many people are using CEDB or SQL Server CE? CEDB? How many use CEDB? So the rest of you are using SQL Server CE? Yeah, it's an incredibly rich database. Very excited to be able to announce that we're going to be providing that in the ROM on the next version of the operating system. For some of you that are still using CEDB, we're also going to provide that in the ROM. What we would encourage you to do is start migrating your applications to SQL Server CE, because that's our roadmap database in the future. For those of you that are using CEDB, I might want to talk to you afterwards so we can kind of understand how long we should keep that in the ROM, because we don't want to break your applications. There's a number of good talks on SQL Server CE. Again, I can't emphasize enough how excited we are that we're going to be providing this in the ROM for you. And it's just an incredibly rich database experience. And not only does it give you some of the richness that you're used to on the desktop with SQL Server, but it's also really optimized for the kind of environments that these devices are in, which is occasionally connected environments. Just to reiterate, what we are providing in ROM is the data storage engine, the query processor, and also the managed provider. We're planning on providing all those things in ROM on the next version. Unified home screen. This is an example of one of the things messages I mentioned at the beginning. What we are really trying to do is unify Pocket PC and smartphone from a developer's perspective. So we have a number of areas where the programming model on those two versions of the mobile operating system are a little different. The home screen and the today's screen is just one example of that. So in the next version of the operating system, we're going to have a single unified model for doing home screens. So the idea is that we're going to enable you to write a single home screen that works on Pocket PC or smartphone on any resolution. And that's like incredibly important for our customers. Right next to ringtones, these are probably the most commonly downloaded things our customers are doing right now. So the new unified model for home screens is XHTML. So you don't even have to write code to write a very, very rich home screen. What you can do is build really cool home screens using Notifications Broker. So Notifications Broker, again, exposes all kinds of interesting state information. So anything Notifications Broker exposes, it's really easy to bind an HTML code in your home screen and surface that information on the home page. Again, along the lines of unifying smartphone and Pocket PC, we're providing a unified installer. I've actually been asked about this by several of you this morning and yesterday at the conference. As some of you may know, there's a different version of the installer on today on Pocket PC and smartphone. On the next version, there's going to be a single version. We're going to take some of the best features of both and create a single unified installer. It's going to do all the same things an installer needs to do, which is crack cab files, check signatures, copy files. It's going to be backwards compatible with cab files that you create today. Those will be able to be installed by the new unified installer, as well as a couple additional formats. But we're also going to really try to enhance the experience of creating installs and deploying applications. So there's a number of features, even today, in the installers that we're not really doing a good job exposing, either documenting or just providing you access to, and we're going to expose a lot more of those in the next version. You can do installs through a number of different mechanisms. You can install packages through, or cab files through Pi, through Pocket IE. You can install them in a number of different ways, like completely silently. A signed package could be installed completely silently without user intervention, if that was appropriate on your device. You can specify that the installation happen only if a user okays it. That's the prompt mode. And we're also, this is something somebody asked me about this morning too, we're also going to provide better integration in the unified installer with Configuration Manager. Because, after all, Configuration Manager is about provisioning devices. There's a really natural synergy between allowing you to provide provisioning information inside an installation. Pocket Watson. This is a tool that we're providing to help all of us provide more robust applications and a better user experience, better Windows mobile platform. So Pocket Watson, you've probably all seen Watson on the desktop. Pocket Watson is going to have a similar experience for users, and we are going to provide this in the ROM. So if an application crashes while in the hands of a user, they will optionally be able to send a log file back to Microsoft, where we have the same kinds of Watson servers set up. And then we'll have a program where we can work with you to provide those logs to you so that you can understand where users might be having problems with your applications. So the way it's going to work, again, fairly similar to the desktop. If your application has an unhandled second chance exception, we'll capture that, automatically create a cab file, send that to the Watson server, a Microsoft Watson server. Again, the user has to say yes. And then if you have a relationship with us, then we can make that available to you. Last little tip I wanted to give on persistent storage. As you know, Pocket PC right now, and always has been, a RAM-based file system. So we get some of the benefits of, kind of the instant-on experience. But we also have some of the disadvantages of if you go away on vacation for 2 weeks, maybe all your batteries are dead and you've lost files. On smartphone, from the very beginning, we've had a persistent file system. What we haven't necessarily done a good job is keeping it kind of pinned to the same location. So in 2002, it was under the IPSM directory, and on smartphone 2003, it's under the storage folder. And on Windows Mobile future platforms, let me just say, please use the shgit special folder path. We're going to really try hard in the future to consolidate this across smartphone and platform in Pocket PC in a way that doesn't break your applications. But for all your new applications, I really want to encourage you to use these APIs to locate the persistent storage. And it is currently our plan to move towards a persistent file system on Pocket PC. So again, that's another example of where we're moving the platforms closer together. Some of the resources to go to after this talk to get information. There's a lot of talks I want to encourage you to go to learn more about some of the things that I've just given you some hints about. In particular, I want to encourage you to go to the talk tomorrow morning because there are about 4 or 5 of these APIs that I just barely touched on. Larry's going to really drive deeper on, let you see how the interfaces work and how you might write code. There's a lot of talks going on about the next version of the Compact Framework, and a lot of what we're providing for you in the next version is built on that. There's talks on SQL. There's talks on MapPoint, which reminds me. I already timed out. Yeah, I guess I have 0 bars right now, so I wasn't able to show you the demo. But what this little simple application that will be provided as a sample does is use the mobile cellular service. In this case, I'm locating somebody whose phone is provisioned with AT&T Wireless, and we have a server set up with them, kind of a test server. What it does is query the current location of one of my buddies through the location APIs, return that information for me, and then map their location. And that buddy of mine is actually at the conference. We could have seen what session he's attending, or maybe he's even in the audience. But he is talking again. I think that's tomorrow, and he's going to show in much more detail how the location services integrates with MapPoint and how you might use that. I think you get something. You can win something if you, an MPX 200 if you fill out an evaluation. So I would encourage you to fill out an evaluation, and I'm going to hang around up here if anybody has questions. Oh, thank you. Okay. Good question. I got to think of something really arbitrary that only one of you will guess. Which of these APIs is my favorite? No, it was location. Actually, it might have been I changed my mind. It was notifications burger. Who said notifications burger? Help me think of a question, Robert. That's an excellent one. Who's the first person that can tell me what's the best way to find the persistent storage folder for your application data? You, sir. I heard you first. It was pretty recent information. All right, any questions? We've got a lot of people here from the team, so there's a lot of opportunity to share feedback with us or ask questions about what's coming up in the next version of the operating system. Profile information for smartphone? Like performance profiling? Mm-hmm.
You don't have, it doesn't obey what the current sound profile is. So you have to know what the sound API is so you can behave.
Sound.
Exactly. So you have to know what the profiles are so you can act within the boundaries of the sound profile. Yeah, he wants to play video on a smartphone. So how do you do that?
So the question more has to do with how do I know what the sound profile is, like volume and stuff, current settings?
Yeah, you can talk to it directly. You talk directly to the driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you told the stat man that was the right thing to do. Yeah, CED. Are you using CEDB now?
We have an app we shipped a couple of years ago that does.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'd be curious about is whether or not I could in it.
So like in an upgrade
Maybe
scenario?
I should say when I need to go ahead and modify that.
So what we would probably do for some time to come is make CEDB available for you to bundle with your applications. What we're talking about doing is at some point having that not be available in ROM.
Right. And if it takes long enough, then maybe that app's no longer even going to work.
Possibly.
So that's just
Yeah.
kind of what I was curious about.
And we, we want to provide as much backwards compatibility as possible, but it's such a, constrained footprint. EDB, yeah, we did mention that, and that was the intention. We're actually not going to expose that. What happened is SQL CE Server is successful beyond our wildest imagination, and so we're making room for it in ROM because so many of you guys and our customers have requested for it. So we're absolutely going to make that available, and we're going to encourage everybody to migrate their apps. But we will. There shouldn't be because we announced our intention to do the EDB, but we didn't really make it available. Technically, actually, it's in ROM too, but we're not going to encourage anybody to build any applications on it. We're using it a little bit internally, but we're going to be deprecating that probably first, and then eventually CEDB.